Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Alumni Talks webinar that will give you first-hand information on Syracuse University Whitman School of Management MBA experience. My name is Mila, and I am the moderator of this webinar on behalf of Unimi. Please welcome our panelists, Whitman School of Management Executive Director, Graduate Admissions and Student Recruitment, Chris, and one of their successful current students, James. They will be telling us about the educational journey and how acquiring a degree from Whitman School of Management can enhance your career. You will be able to send your questions throughout the entire webinar by typing them in the chat box, and our panelists will take time to give you an answer during the Q&A session in the second half of this event. Okay, let's check the sound now. Could you please write in the chat box if you can hear me? Okay, great, thank you. So we can start now with the presentation.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, especially in these really challenging and unprecedented times across the globe that we all face with this, global pandemic. So hopefully you all are safe and healthy, and we wish all the best for you and your families. And we really appreciate you taking the time to learn more about the Syracuse MBA experience and all that Syracuse MBA has to offer. We're gonna start off today with, I'll give you some more general information about the program, about what we have to offer at Syracuse through our MBA. And then I'm gonna allow our current student, Jim, to go ahead and give more about his experience and about what it's like for him in Whitman, and really why he chose Whitman, which is probably the most important part. So as you see here, I have some information up about just the fact that we're going to talk about the Syracuse MBA experience. So as was mentioned before, if you would like to chime in and put any questions in the chat window, we will definitely come back to those at the end of the presentation and try to get all of your questions answered. So in the Syracuse University, we are the Whitman School of Management. There are many schools in the university. Our School of Management, we offer actually a variety of master's degree programs. We offer an MS, 6 different MS programs, I should say, which include accounting, business analytics, finance, marketing, entrepreneurship, supply chain management. But we also have our best, probably, and longest standing program is the full-time traditional 2-year MBA. One of the unique parts of that program, being that it's a 2-year MBA and a traditional type of program, is that we have 18 credit hours built into that program as elective credits. And with those elective credits, you can actually focus or do a specialization in any of those other areas I just mentioned that are master's degrees. So whether you have an interest in business analytics or you have an interest in marketing or finance, it only takes 9 credits to do one of those specializations. And again, as I mentioned, we have the 18 credits of electives, so you could do up to 2. Another unique part of the Syracuse MBA is that with the larger university, you can actually tap into some of the other schools across the campus and take classes that might interest you in completely different subjects. We have had students in the past take a class maybe in law or a class in economics or marketing, advertisement, a little bit different than our marketing, through one of the other programs at the university, or even something maybe in information management through our iSchool. So you have that opportunity to also kind of cross-pollinate across the university. So it's really all been established to try to make it as much of an enriching experience that can really diversify your background and allow you to open up more career paths. Historically, most people still have looked at, or have in the past and still look at, the MBA as kind of one of the most sought after master's degrees, because it opens up so many different doors and many different industries, and allows you really to move into leadership positions. And that's still the case today. And this diversity in your background with having different specializations or different courses across different parts of our campus can only further enhance your career outcomes or your career potential in the long run, and your possibilities as you move forward. So and you're ultimately, which everybody wants to improve typically, is their long-term earning potential, and that definitely is something that's available to you with our MBA as well. So let me just dive a little bit deeper into what our program looks like. Again, it's a 2-year program. It's a total of 54 credits. Syracuse University, we're located right in central New York State. So we're about a 4.5-hour ride to the west of New York City. So really, we really do consider ourselves central New York. Syracuse is probably about a small to mid-sized city. The university overall has about 18 to 20,000 students in it, somewhere in that range. But our master's program in Whitman still gives you a very small classroom size and intimate setting, because we typically have about 25 to 30 new MBA students, for example, in that program. And even across the master's degrees in total, if you include those MS programs I was referring to earlier, there's about a total of 250, 240 students, somewhere kind of in that range of active full-time grad students. So that's kind of the overview of what you would see from our program. The other major benefit that I would highlight, besides from the curriculum itself, is again the way we are set up to give the most support we can to our students. We have a dedicated advisor, full-time advisor for our master students, and she works with every student directly throughout their time in one of our master's programs to making sure you're fulfilling all of your requirements and staying on track for completing the program in the time length that you really want to get it done, and stay on track for graduation. We also have a dedicated career center, which I think really helps set us apart from other programs too. Our career center within Whitman has a full staff working with definitely all of our undergrad students, but as part of that team, we now have expanded the team in the past 2 years to add a person who specifically works with our master students. So she only works with that group of 200 or so students that I just mentioned before, and that is her full-time responsibility, to work with you to find connections in different industries you're interested, find connections for the career fairs coming up, work with you on your resume and cover letter writing, and the entire process. Again, something unique to our program is that individual does what we call a summer onboarding with all of our new students online before you even come to campus for your first semester in the fall, to just get that jump start to preparing you for the career pursuit while you're in your master's degree program. Because everyone that's coming into the degree, the ultimate goal beyond achieving that master's degree is that next job. Where are you going to go with your career? And we value that part of the process, and we want to start right away. So that's why we start in the summer and have you basically, hopefully, ready to go for our first career fair on campus. That's a Whitman School of Management fair that happens in the fall, and we do another one in the winter typically as well. So again, I think that just further shows the support and determination and dedication we give to the career services side of things, and the focus on helping you find both internships and then full-time opportunities. So that's a lot of the nuts and bolts of the full-time MBA program specifically. I did want to take a few moments to highlight that we also offer an online MBA program. So our online MBA program, just like our full-time in-person program, is also accredited by AACSB. It's the exact same curriculum as our full-time students take in person, and it is taught by the same full-time professors as the in-person MBA. The major difference we typically see with folks taking or individuals taking the online MBA is that they want to be able to continue to work full-time, so they don't have that option to leave and go into a full-time program in person, and that's why they pursue the online option. Our online MBA has continued to rank highly in many different magazines and rankings across the the country. They're a top 40 US news program. We just broke top 10 in another ranking in the last couple weeks. So it is really well awarded program, well established program, and they run things in a very, I think, unique online platform and online system. So we partner with a company and have kind of our own internal platform to do live online sessions, sort of like today, where you actually would have the opportunity to connect with classmates, connect with your faculty member for a live session, and they usually do one live session per week per course. The times will definitely vary, so I can't tell you it's always at the same time of day. So sometimes it gets a little bit trickier if you're, outside the US to take the online program or not in the Eastern time zone. But there have been plenty of successful students over the last few years who have enrolled in the online MBA and been able to still connect with those live sessions and work out those details with their faculty. Even though the online program has a pretty robust overall enrollment, the class sizes are still kept small for each section of a class. And that, again, is intentional so that these live sessions can be dynamic and not be overfilled, and still, to allow the technology to work properly, and not worry about bandwidth restrictions because there's too many people in a section. So most of these sections are kept between about 15 to 25 people, in that range. And again, that allows it to still have dynamic conversations. It allows the professor to really teach, and then also even do like breakout sessions. So there's the ability to do group projects in the live online sessions and put people into teams, into separate meeting rooms, and then bring back everybody into one main conference room and teaching room. So everything is, like I said, pretty well established on that platform. It's very dynamic and allows for a very interactive online degree and online curriculum and experience, classroom experience per se, as opposed to maybe something that would be all pre-recorded lectures and pre-recorded material. There's definitely some of that built into the program, but being able to, again, have that live connection at least once per week really helps. The other part of the program that's really great is that the program runs on a quarter calendar for the online students as opposed to a semester calendar. And that allows you to start at any point throughout the year, but also continue taking classes all year round. Again, we see mostly working professionals in this program, and it just gives them the ultimate flexibility. So that, again, gives you just an overview of the online. Like I said, all the same specializations are available to you. The career counseling is still available to you online, and everything like that. So you still have all the same functionality, just in a distance program. The last thing that I really want to mention in regards to the experience you get at Whitman, before I hand it over to Jim for a few minutes to give us kind of his overall experience, is we are really focused on experiential learning. Now, that's probably honestly a term you may hear from a lot of different schools, but to me, it's more about what does that actually look like? What does that actually mean? Jim can talk more about some of his experiential learning opportunities, even some stuff that he's been able to participate in remotely recently here, even with everything going on with our classes having to be fully online right now. So we are looking always for opportunities to have students have experiences outside the classroom, and that's what we mean by experiential learning. And whether it's a case competition, whether it's something with one of the clubs or organizations that offers a professional development opportunity outside the classroom, whether it's bringing guest speakers, or whether it's going out to New York City, which we do have a learning center in New York. Obviously, before the pandemic hit and everything like that, we have been very active. We take students to events in New York, and we're continuously looking to expand that, and that will be part of the plan, again, once it's safe to do so again. But one of the really great initiatives that has happened in the last couple of years that actually brings all of our MBA students, or at least has the potential to bring all of our MBA students both online and full-time together, is what we call a residency program. So the online program has a requirement for students to have residency experiences throughout their time in the program. And what those residencies are in-person classes, kind of formatted in an executive seminar style, so that you actually go to a location, you are met with the faculty and staff there, and you do a class, but you also have an experience. So for example, we do some of these domestically here in the US. We do them right on our main campus in Syracuse to bring the online students to campus at least once in their program to feel the campus experience and really see the campus. But then we also do them in places like New York City, but we've done them in Denver, Colorado. We've done them in LA, California, and we've done them globally too. We've done, most recently, there was one in Costa Rica, Panama. We've done them though in Ireland. They've been to China in the past, really all over the globe. If it's an international experience, the best part is they typically extend the schedule to be a week to 10-day experience. If it's something domestically, it can be a long weekend with just about a 3 or 4 day experience. But again, the great thing is you would know ahead of time when you register what the class would be about. So you do get course credit for this. You do have company visits typically when you go on these experiential sessions. And then you also get to visit maybe a new part of the world you've never been, whether that's somewhere outside the US or in the US, and really have that exposure to that culture and infused cultural experiences too. So students are really starting to appreciate these, learning about new places, taking and learning business in those locations. And that's what we mean by, again, experiential learning is what type of unique opportunities can we provide our students that are outside your class experience. And then a lot of other things are happening inside the classroom. There's a focus on having faculty definitely bring in more real world projects, partner with real companies. That's always been a stronghold of Whitman, is using our corporate connections to do those type of things as well. But this idea of taking and actually physically going outside of Syracuse and outside the university to have these experiences is really important too, and we're seeing those grow and develop. And the last point on that, again, is the fact that I said you can bring the online and full-time students together, is because we do offer that to both groups of students. It's a really neat opportunity, I think, for our full-time students to connect typically with some online students who are a little bit further along in their career. Most of our online students have 10 or more years of work experience, and our average work experience for full-time is more in the 3 to 5 year window. So that just gives you that much more opportunity to expand your network and, really enhance your overall time at Syracuse University and the Whitman School of Management. So I don't want to talk for too long. There may be things I've definitely missed along the way. We're going to be so happy and willing to answer questions that you have as you send those into the chat box later on in the conversation. But for the moment, I want to reintroduce Jim here. As you can see from our pictures, these are both our headshots pre-pandemic, where we have slightly had to change our appearance, maybe by choice or by force, but we're doing the best we can right now. And as I said, I want to hand things over to Jim and let him speak more about why Whitman for him. He's had a very unique experience, I think, going through Syracuse University, even as an undergrad. So I don't want to steal his thunder, but he can tell you all about Whitman and his experience. And thank you again so much for joining us. And I look forward to answer your questions, after we have Jim talk to us. Jim, go ahead.
Thanks, Chris. So yeah, like you just heard Chris mention, I did my undergrad at Syracuse as well. I was not a Whitman major, but I was a Whitman minor. And that's where I was sort of first exposed to what the Whitman community was like and how they remain dedicated to their students and the type of opportunities they make available to their students, like Chris was just speaking about. I went to work for about 3 years when I decided I was interested in pursuing an MBA, and Syracuse was top of my list for the reason that I had such a positive experience in undergrad, and I had that initial exposure to Whitman to begin with. But when it came time to make the final decision, it wasn't just my prior history at Whitman or SU that made it easy. It really, two of the primary driving factors behind why I decided to return to Whitman is really the resources and opportunities, many of which that, Chris just talked about, but there's a lot more to it as well. So, I mean, Chris spoke about the Career Center and some of the residencies and things like that, which are very exciting information, very exciting opportunities for graduate students. But, on top of that, the technology is really profound. In terms of, there's a Bloomberg terminal and very robust analytical tools that you have access to, and it's built into the program. For someone like me, I was really interested in learning some coding and how we can use that for business analytics. And, the SU has resources to help you learn R and SQL and things like that. And then along with sort of those more technical features of the program that can be built into your education, you also have the opportunity to go out and get certified in all sorts of different things. So, right now I'm working towards a CPIM certification. I'm a supply chain concentration as well as business analytics. We talked about how you can concentrate in certain areas. So right now I'm working towards CPIM. But there's a lot of different things that you can participate in, whether it's APICS or, if you're interested in Six Sigma, Whitman will certify you. There's a course for that. Excel, Tableau, Google Analytics, really a lot of really relevant and very interesting tools that you don't just get to use, but you can, on paper become an expert in, and Whitman will provide that opportunity for you. And then tying that into sort of the classroom setting, Chris mentioned a push for more real world problems and things like that in the classroom. I would say in the vast majority of courses that I'm taking, and this is something that I did a little bit of investigation on too before I made the decision to come, is you are working with real data. You're working with real cases, real problem sets. It's not all stuff that was fabricated in your professor's mind, rather acquired through connections that Whitman has and built into a curriculum, which is really good, and that was very attractive for me. But between all of that, and then, we have very skilled faculty and a very dedicated staff, there really is a feeling of a mutual determination and devotion to your success as a student. And I felt that from day one. And what I mean by that is, Whitman isn't just there to offer you these tools and these resources and these learning opportunities and tell you to, see what you could do with it, take it and run. Rather, they're with you every step of the way. The staff and faculty will work with you to figure out what you're interested in, what your goals are, how can Whitman help you achieve that, and they're with you every step of the way. A little bit on the class profile, that was another big factor for me. I like an intimate class setting. So like Chris mentioned, I think there's like 25 to 30 or 35 students in a class, which makes, I think it fosters a really good learning environment, especially when you're diving into really complex ideas and processes and quantitative methods, things like that. It helps to not be in a massive lecture hall and be able to interact with your peers and your professors, on a first name basis. And then the professional backgrounds of the MBA is really diverse and really interesting as well. My classmates specifically range from environmental scientists to computer engineers to auditors to marketing professionals, in a world of different industries: oil, fashion, consumer packaged goods, anything you could think of. And that also makes it a much more exciting, much more fulfilling environment to feed off of each other and sort of make it through the program together. Just a few other things on the school in general too, and in the area. Whitman and the name Syracuse, it carries weight. Syracuse is a global university, and people recognize that orange S. I can't tell you the amount of times that I've been stopped in an airport or a restaurant or out at a mall or something in public, nowhere near the city of Syracuse, by someone that recognizes the logo and went there, has a family member that went there, and that makes networking really easy. And there's a lot of it to do when you come to Whitman. I've had countless conversations with Whitman alumni who I just reached out to on LinkedIn or connected with through a presentation that was given in class. And they're always more than willing to talk with you, get to know you, help you out in any capacity, and not just MBA. You have full access to the entire alumni network of people who did their undergrad at Whitman or were MBA or other master's students as well. And it's a very dedicated alumni network, and they're very willing to help you out. And then the last thing I'll say is that the Syracuse area in general, Central New York, is really nice. It's not a super massive, overwhelming city. There's a lot of really great restaurants and things to do. If you like to be outdoors, we're relatively close to the Adirondacks. There's several state parks, so a lot of hiking, biking, running, things like that. So it's not a boring place, not a bad place to be either. So that's kind of my spiel. Again, like Chris said, I'm happy to take any questions, and with that, I'll hand it back over.
Thanks so much, Jim. I really appreciate your insight, and it's great to again hear from Jim's experience, because he really did have some unique options, I'm sure, when he was looking at, had been working for a few years and then coming back to Syracuse. And again, the brand, I have to say I agree with him that block S, it's hard to go too many places and not have somebody from anywhere in the globe kind of recognize that S and say something to you. If you have that on a hat or a shirt or something that you're bringing along with you, it's a pretty amazing, as we refer to the overall Orange network. One last thing I do want to mention before we really open up to questions. Obviously this is very challenging times for everybody, as I kind of mentioned in the beginning. One of the things that we are doing right now is we've extended our application deadlines in case anybody today who's here is still looking for opportunities to join a master's program for this coming fall. Right now, it's still to be determined on how we will start our fall classes come the end of August. We are hopeful, though, that we will be able to open the campus back up and go right back to in-person full-time offerings on the campus in the Whitman School. We don't know for sure, though. We have been told by some of our leadership that we can expect the university to probably make some type of path forward announcement, or at least highlighting what the fall will look like by mid-June. So anyway, to take a step back, if you are looking to apply, we have extended our application deadlines. We actually we do rounds. So we added a 5th round this year of May 15th. Really what we're looking for by May 15th is that you have at least submitted the online application form. Once you've submitted that, you get into our application system, and we can work with you throughout the summer to get your remaining items. And actually, Jim's a great example of this. Last summer, he was a little bit later applicant, which is absolutely fine. But I think he would attest to the fact that we were still able to work with him through the process and get him enrolled in time for classes come fall. So we can definitely be flexible. We want to be as flexible as possible given the current circumstances. But in general, we're typically typically pretty flexible. So we can definitely answer questions about requirements if that's something that somebody wants to talk about in this session, or we want to take offline later on, which, really, I want to make sure people have our contact information. That's really important to us. This is our website where you can, see the Whitman homepage and find out more about the MBA, but you can also look at some of our other programs on the Whitman website if you want to. And then this is our general email inbox. It's much easier to spell than my last name, as you may have seen on the previous slides. So the busgrad, busgrad @syr.edu. If you submit questions into there after today's talk, we can definitely respond back to you directly, and you will get a response from either myself or one of our other two recruiters on my team, and we will follow up with you and really walk you through the whole process. So again, we really appreciate your consideration on joining us today and your interest in the programs. And at this point, I'd really love to answer questions that you have that might be suited for Jim or I, as we're both here to help out.
Okay, so we're gonna move to the questions now, and I'm gonna start with the first one, which I think, Chris, would actually be for you. Does specialization have an additional fee?
No, that's a great question. So the specializations, and again, maybe I didn't highlight that properly enough. So the entire program is 54 credits. You do that as a 2-year full-time student. Within that 54 credits, there's 18 credits built in of electives. So you do have the option to not actually specialize if you don't want to. You could just take elective courses from across the master's degree offerings of classes that interest you, or like I said, across the campus and even another school that might interest you. And that would count as those electives. But if you follow the plan for a specialization, the curriculum plan, then you can earn one of these specializations built into those 18 credits. So there's no additional charge because it's built right into the program.
Great, thank you for that. The next question is for Jim, and it goes, there are like two questions actually. Did you have to quit your job to do the degree, and was that a tough decision?
So yes, I am part of the full-time MBA, so I did leave my job to come. And it was a large thing to consider when I was making the decision. I actually initially applied to the online program, but after having several conversations with Chris and a few other people, within the graduate program, it made my decision a little bit easier that, yes, a full-time program is right for me, and Whitman is the place to do it.
Great, thank you. Moving on to the next question again, Chris, I think you can give your opinion on that. What is the minimum work experience required for MBA?
That's a great question. So we do not technically have a minimum work experience requirement to apply to the full-time program. Like I said, the online program, we typically see or candidates with significantly more work experience on that 10-year average. But even in the online program, it's not a requirement. It's kind of recommended typically that you have some work experience because, just like Jim having some work experience, there's usually a lot of value you can take and bring into the program if you are able to relate it to the work you've already been involved with. Although Jim has also mentioned there's a lot of great projects and real data being used and real problems being solved in the classroom, real issues that are being looked at. It's not all, like he said, just out of a textbook or something like that, or fabricated by somebody as an example. But we don't require it. So we have a wide range. We actually do have some internal programs at the university that allow specifically some undergraduate students to matriculate directly into the MBA program. So of course they would probably have very little work experience unless they've had some internships, but it would still be very minimum. And then we have some candidates that come from different parts of the globe that have 10 years of work experience, and even in the full-time program. Like I said, our average is typically about 3 to 5 years in that range. The curriculum itself, from my understanding of how it was originally developed and how it's evolved over time, is that the individuals that usually benefit the most from our full-time MBA and being in person are people that are still earlier on in their career. We're not an executive MBA formatted curriculum. We're not meant for people with 10 plus years of experience necessarily. We're really on that early career path. So, Jim is the ideal example at like around 3 years of work experience or so. But again, not required. And, we have a holistic review process for our admissions process and our admissions committee. And they look at everything. They will definitely look at your work experience. They'll review your, they'll review your resume, but they'll look at, your standardized test scores for GMAT GRE. They'll look at your undergraduate GPA. They'll read your essay and your recommendation letters. Those are really crucial as well. And they're, bottom line, there's no actual experience requirement.
Great, thank you. While we're on the work experience topic, Jim, next question is for you. What was your job before joining the MBA?
Prior to joining the MBA, I was a product manager for a small software company in central Connecticut, specializing in white labeling e-commerce platforms for retailers via the internet. So, yeah, not necessarily, that's part of the reason I wanted to pursue the MBA, is because I was getting really felt like I was getting really pigeonholed into a very specific niche area, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay, which again kind of pointed me towards an MBA to see how I could broaden my skill set and elaborate on things that I've already done.
Thank you. We have more questions coming in. Again, this is for, I think, Chris. Does the school help with visas for candidates outside of the US?
Sure. Excuse me. Absolutely. We do everything we can. So for our side of the process, I guess, is what I would say. We do have an international student service center that we rely on to help the Whitman School. So that's a larger office that the university has to work with all international students across the campus. And we do have a process where, you do need to apply, you need to be admitted, you need to submit your financial support documents to get your I-20 issued, and then all of the other requirements that you might need to actually get the visa approved. The International Student Service Office is a support system and support individuals for that. So, like I said, as far as we can help, we definitely do. Then we walk students through the proper chain and the proper process, and in a hope that they're able to get their visa issued and come in and attend and enroll in the program.
Thank you so much for that. Moving on to the next question, which is for Jim. How did you fund your MBA? Did you have to apply for a loan, and did you get a scholarship?
So I'll answer to my situation. I think Chris might be a little bit of a better person to respond to this, but I did receive scholarship to come, and I believe a lot of that is based on your GMAT or GRE score. But for any more technical information regarding how that works, I think I'll defer to Chris there.
Yeah, that's not a problem, Jim. That makes sense. So every applicant for the Whitman School of Management for any of our master's degrees, and it's very much an emphasis with the MBA, and I'll tell you why in a moment, is able to qualify for what we call merit-based scholarship. And as Jim mentioned, GMAT GRE scores are definitely a contributing factor to making that decision. But we also look at work experience, if you do have any. We read again the recommendation letters. We read your essay. The essay talks about, if you answer the question that we actually have, because we do have a specific question, we don't just ask for a personal statement. It gives us an opportunity to look at you a little bit through a different lens, and maybe consider where you see yourself in the future, which is kind of the focus of the question. And all of these things allow us to try to build a profile of how strong of a candidate we think you are, and if you fit the values, the core values of Whitman. And based on those factors, our scholarship committee will make a scholarship decision. As I said before, especially with the MBA, scholarship is significant is because of the fact that we have such a large donor relationship or donor spectrum of endowed awards that we can give out to our MBA students specifically. And I should mention this is specifically for the full-time in-person program. The online program is a little bit different. It hasn't been established for as long as the full-time program, so there's unfortunately not as significant of scholarships available. There are still some, but we can talk about that separately, probably offline, what that would look like if someone was really interested. But I can tell you for the full-time in-person program, as Jim mentioned, he's received scholarship. A lot of our students do. I can tell you the average scholarship is typically about $25,000 to $30,000 in aid, and it can go up from there. We do go all the way up to full scholarship if the committee feels that somebody is worthy of that or should be awarded that. It can go that high. And in the last couple of years, again, a lot of it based on endowment support too, we've been able to give 1/3 of our students full scholarships. So, we have been able to be very generous with scholarship awards, and it's just part of the admissions process. You don't have to apply for these scholarships. Once you're admitted, you go from one committee right to the other one and get a scholarship decision right away without applying separately. And when you are admitted, you receive not only an admissions offer, but you also receive your scholarship offer all at the same time.
Thank you for this answer. We're going to move to the next question, and Jim, it's for you. Did you apply to other schools as well?
When I was considering an online program, I did apply to other schools. But when it came time that I made the decision that I wanted to go full time, I knew I wanted to be at Whitman, and Whitman was the only full-time program I applied to.
Great, thank you. Next question to Chris. How is tuition built, and can it be paid in installments?
Sure, that's a great question, and some of that I'm going to defer to, and I can find this out and get you the exact breakdown from our financial aid and student billing department. But as far as I know, what you absolutely get charged each semester. This part I can confirm, I should say, is that you do get charged on a semester basis directly in regards to how many classes or basically how many credits you're enrolled in. So most graduate programs in our country for sure do per credit hour tuition rates for graduate school. So if you're enrolled in 12 credits for that semester, your bill reflects the tuition rate based on, and then by the 12 credits. In regards to a payment plan is the part that I'm not as sure how our billing department would set that up, but that might be something that they can do as well. But like I said, it's not a situation where you're charged an annual tuition and you're expected to pay that as soon as you enroll or anything like that. It's literally each term you're charged based on the number of credits you enroll in. So if it's a 2-year program, as you break up those credits along the way, you're charged differently each semester based on the credits. And then the same thing with your scholarship. Your scholarship can be broken up, into each term based on your enrollment, if that helps the entire financial process.
Thank you. We have a question that I think you can both contribute to, and this is how easy is to get accommodation in Syracuse?
Say that one more time, Mila.
Sorry, how easy is to get accommodation in Syracuse?
And by accommodation, do we mean admitted?
No, living off campus and in Syracuse.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sure. I'll let Jim talk about how he found living, but I can tell you we do have a lot of resources on the admitted student web pages for recommendations for living options. So there's, as Jim mentioned earlier, we're a pretty and I said too, I think we're pretty mid-size, small, we're pretty safe community in downtown, and there's lots of living options within walking distance of the campus, whether they're more apartment complexes or individual apartments to rent from folks nearby the campus. But like I said, we do have resources available that we share with students once they're admitted for off-campus living. And then uniquely enough, there is options to look at some of the apartments on campus through the university for grad students to live in as well. And those contact information for that department is all part of, like I said, the admitted pages. I don't know how your search process was, Jim, if you already just had contacts or what you could say about finding off-campus living.
Yeah, there's a lot. And you could pretty much find whatever you're looking for. So if you want to live in downtown Syracuse, there's plenty available for rent there. If you prefer more of a neighborhood, all the immediate surrounding area of the university is kind of just streets lined with houses for rent, apartments for rent. And I mean, there's a lot. So it's not very, I do not think it would be very difficult to find or sign a lease for your time here. I chose to explore a little bit further outside the perimeter of the university. I have a car and am able to drive myself to and from campus. So I actually live in Liverpool, which is a suburb outside the city of Syracuse, which is full of apartment housing and whatnot as well. But if you're looking for walking distance, there's plenty available. And then most everything else within Syracuse is, they have a pretty constantly running bus line that could get you right to the university too.
Thank you. Again, a question to both of you. What are the networking events held by the school?
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, real quick, I'll give a couple of the examples that I know off the top of my head, and Jim might be able to chime in with some of the specific events he may have attended. But we do offer career fairs twice a year through the Whitman School of Management specifically. So again, this isn't a university-wide initiative. This is specifically for the business or School of Management. So it has, from my understanding, we have almost 100 companies at the event, especially in the fall. So it's right away in September. And then there's one in what is our spring semester towards the end of January. And again, has typically close to 100, maybe 90, 85, somewhere in that range, companies coming to that event as well. So those are important networking events in their own right. You get to go up to these tables and connect with recruiters from all different companies all across the globe and all different industries. And it really can start being the groundwork setting for applying there either very soon or in the future. It's very, but it's a very important networking component. We definitely do other alumni network mixers for the School of Management. We do networking for our own students. That starts right away with orientation, which I think is important for the students to start to get to know each other. But those are some of the things I'm thinking right at the top of my head that we get involved with. As I mentioned before, we also do things in New York City, which is really important, and take students to events there, and again get them the opportunity to network. Any one of those experiential trips I was referring to before usually has some type of networking event built into it, whether that be with corporate sponsors that might be in the area, companies that they might just invite, or really other alumni. So it's a typical part of one of those processes too. I don't know if what you may have been involved with, Jim.
Yeah, another thing I'll say is outside of the Whitman career fairs, the university as a whole puts on their own career fair each semester. And then a lot of other individual schools within Syracuse University will put on their own too. And Whitman students have the opportunity to go to virtually all of them. So it's not like you only have 2 available to you over the course of the year. You have more like 3 or 4 each semester that you can go to if you choose.
And Jim, are those announcements, not to cut you off, but those announcements are made through like the student portal, right? Like you're able to find out about these pretty easily.
Absolutely, yeah. They're all, you can find them on Handshake, which is a platform that we use to connect students with job postings and events happening on campus. There'll also be several emails and flyers and a lot of communication. It's pretty hard to miss. Another thing I'll say too is within the MBA program, there's a mentee-mentor program for students. So they'll connect current MBA students with alumni and sort of just create a deeper relationship between you and one specific alumni that might have a career in a field you're interested in or share similar goals as you do. And then they kind of serve as a guide for you to bounce questions off of, ideas off of, connect you with people at their company or others they may know, and that sort of thing. And then, another thing I'll say is Whitman gets invited to stuff too. Chris mentioned in passing earlier, our Whitman was invited to compete in a remote case competition just this past weekend through another university about an hour west of Syracuse. And I competed with a team as well. And there you get to network with the judges and hosts and facilitators of the event and a lot of other MBA students at many other schools as well. So there's things like that going on all the time. And then Whitman also invites companies to come to the school throughout the semester, not during the career fair. And they'll hold information sessions and meet with students. In my memory, as I recall, I mean, it's very frequently, if not every single week, there's someone else in the school taking resumes and passing out information and that kind of thing.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. And I think Chris can give his answer to it. How long can an international student stay in the USA after graduation?
So that's a great question. Right now with our MBA, the way it is set up, you would get the traditional 1-year OPT to be able to stay in the country on your visa and work without full company sponsorship. One of the program interests that I know more and more international students are seeking, so you can have a longer term, is programs with the STEM designation in our country, so that you would get a 3-year OPT. Now, the MBA itself doesn't yet have that designation. It's something that is definitely being looked at and worked on by our administration on the back end to hopefully be able to offer in the future. But what we do offer is the MS programs with STEM designations. So right now, the MS Finance program, the MS Business Analytics program, the MS Supply Chain, and the MS Marketing, those 4 degrees all have STEM designation. Now, the reason I mention that, even though you may be, you may be in the interest of more the MBA and how does it help you with the MBA, the reason is we've been seeing more and more students actually do a dual or consider double degree while they've been at the university. So once you're admitted to the MBA program, the university has an 80% curriculum overlap rule or policy is what I can basically refer to that as. So if you're in the MBA and would like to achieve one of these additional programs, so you could add that STEM designation to therefore add the 3 years of OPT at the end versus the 1, you would be able to do that by only having to complete 80%. And this is an estimate because it does vary a little bit depending on how many classes you may have already started taking before you add the second degree. But typically 80% of the total credits of the 2 programs, so there's overlap there, versus the full 100%. So it typically saves you some time, it saves you some money for less credits, of course, opens up additional scholarships for you when you add the second degree. And ultimately, like I said, we have been seeing more international students go this route to not only have a second master's degree that can be so valuable, but to open up the ability to have the three-year OPT at the end. So if you have any other questions about that, like I said, we have our Bus Grad general email account that you can get into it and send us messages, and we can give you more of those details. But again, we are looking for options to add STEM to the MBA. We're not quite there yet, and that's why we're seeing students really take advantage of that second degree option and having 2 masters and then still getting their STEM designation.
Thank you so much, and thanks for everyone who joined us on this webinar today. Thank you for attending and your experience, expressing your interest in Whitman School. To those of you whose questions were not answered, we're gonna send them to Chris and Jim, and you will get your answer later in writing. Thank you so much, Chris and Jim, for this wonderful presentation. Thank you everyone for attending. You will receive a link with the recording of this webinar so you can rewatch it. And on behalf of Unimi team, we wish you luck in your academic journey, and we hope to meet you again soon. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you, everyone.